Hello, I'm Sharon Nishada. I'm a senior at Voss.
I'm Bridget Sells, and I'm also a senior at Voss, and this is our podcast for our signature project. Our signature project is a learning-based service project that we do throughout the year, and we have to have a virtual space component, so this is ours, and our signature project topic is ending the stigma around dissociative identity disorder.
So, for our last episode, we decided to do an interview with someone who experiences DID firsthand. You can find their account on TikTok. They are the Sprite Company. What they focus on is educating everyone what a DID system is. They learn about, they teach us about how it is, and they make sure to label who is fronting at the time. They inform about what each role in the system does and things like that. Just questions you may have, they can probably answer it there. So how I was able to contact them was that I saw one from Jada going live, and so I asked if we could have this interview, and they thought it would be interesting, and so yay. And so afterwards we sent them the messages through DMs, and they responded.
It was really important to us to get to interview someone who actually has DID because as much as we've read about it and researched about it and watched videos about it, it would be nice to hear from someone firsthand. And we also had a couple questions that we thought would be better answered actually asking someone with the disorder versus just looking up online. And we also thought it would be a good ending to our podcast series. So we will be taking turns reading off the different interview questions. So please excuse the fact that we're looking down a lot in this episode because we will be reading their answers directly. So the first question that we sent over was, as someone who actually has DID, could you please explain it to us in your own words? So the answer that we got from them was DID is dissociative identity disorder. During childhood, identity formation occurs between the ages of 5 and 10. This identity formation can be disruptive when repetitive trauma occurs during this time, resulting in the formation of alters. Alters are formed when the brain dissociates so far from the traumatic event that a whole other identity takes on a life of itself. These identities hold on to emotions and traits of people just like us and should be treated that way. They each have their own likes, dislikes, and personal memories. These identities work together and switch with each other and the host in order to protect the host from both past and future traumas.
The second question we asked them is, in what ways does it affect your day to day? And their response was, the most obvious thing is the switches. Depending on the kind of day we're having, we still switch anywhere from twice, sometimes none, even if someone gets front stuck, to 20 times a day. But it can be even more than that for some systems. Switching can be a blessing and a curse. Sometimes it helps us to be more efficient and work as a team, and sometimes it sets us back and takes away from whatever situation we're in. It is definitely an adjustment. We have to go out about work and school in different ways than singlets. Singlets are who are referred that aren't DID systems because our brain works in different ways. Relationships for all different kinds can also be different and sometimes very complicated. And anyone with a dissociative disorder will have to get used to the memory loss. Sometimes we will have whole days missing, and that can be scary and hard to deal with.
So the third question that we sent to the system was, what is something that you wish all people knew or understood about DID or people with DID? And their response was, we are not dangerous. We are normal people that just happen to have a traumatic past and develop a disorder called DID. Secondly, we are all separate people with distinct and separate identities. Being treated as though we are all just one person because they only have one body can be very emotionally painful. It is important to acknowledge the difference in each alter and to treat them as each their own person.
Okay. The second question we asked them was, have you ever had someone, whether that be a friend, family member, or even doctor, tell you or insinuate that DID isn't real or that you are just making it up? Their response was, yes, a particular friend sticks out. His name was Finn, and Jackson and him were good friends of about 4 months. He was the first person Jackson told about possibly having DID before he got diagnosed. Finn jumped straight to telling Jackson that he was either faking it or experiencing an extreme form of psychosis where he isn't controlling his body. It was really difficult for Jackson because the person he trusted the moment in that instant immediately shot him down. Also, one of the most common symptoms of DID is that thinking that you are faking. So it made that symptom a lot worse for him. But thankfully, we are no longer friends with him.
So I know we touched it on the last episode, but being invalidated can be really damaging to DID systems. And this is just an example of how it happened to someone firsthand. But the fifth question that we sent to them was, what is one common misconception that you see a lot about people with DID? And they said that they are all dangerous, which is absolutely not true. Or that they are just schizophrenics who suffer from malingering, which is also not true. DID and schizophrenia are entirely different disorders and each have different causes. They are not related at all. So that is the thing. A lot of people kind of group together other mental disorders that may have dissociation within them, and it's just not true. That's why it's good to be knowledgeable about the different disorders, because then you can kind of distinguish all the different ones and you don't lump them all together.
Number 6 is, what are things you wish people would do when interacting with people that have DID to make them feel more comfortable? Their response was, treat us all as different people, because we are. Imagine as though you have several friends who are all live in the same house, but when you go into their house, you can only talk to one of them at a time. You're sitting in a room with of your friends when they get up and another one comes in and sits down and you begin to talking with them. Yes, they're in the same chair, but they're two completely different people and you probably have different relationships with each of them. Treat us like that. And don't assume that one of us likes everything another alter likes, because we don't.
So the seventh question that we sent was, if there is someone that thinks they have DID but can't get professional help or diagnosis at the moment, what would you recommend or say to them? And they answered, firstly, you aren't crazy and all of your experiences are valid. If you experience them, they are real and they are valid. Secondly, I would encourage communication between alters. Discovering a system can be stressful for everyone involved, and they speak from personal experience, of course, and communication is really important. It may be hard at first because alters can tend to be defensive, but once it starts, it's so helpful. Jackson literally just straight up asked Jonas, what's your deal? And that's how it worked. I would also just like to make it known that they are not a burden and they are always welcome to talk to me about anything. And once again, if you want to contact them, their ad on TikTok is at the Sprite Company.
The final question that we asked them was, at their time, are there any alters that have left the system, or have they all stayed? Their response was, all we all still have the original alters as well as some that have developed. But alters can go into what's called dormancy. Dormancy happens because the alter has either fulfilled their purpose or because they are experiencing issues causing them to not be able to front or communicate with anyone. Dormant alters are unable to be reached. Personally, when I read these responses, I got a whole new point of view, I guess. It was really interesting to see how they just described everything, and like the whole house thing was really interesting to me and put it more into perspective, I guess. I really hope that helped you guys as well, which is why we're sharing it.
Yeah, like Sharon said, that example, especially with like the example of, you have one friend that gets up out of the chair and a different one comes back in, I thought was really helpful, especially when people kind of have trouble understanding dissociation and switching. But this will be our last episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed the interview, because we definitely enjoyed it as well. And thank you guys for listening. If you've been listening the whole time, we hope that you learned something new and that you took something away from this podcast that was positive. So this is going to be our last episode and our last sign off. So thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for watching.